आपके पास में वही एप्स थी जो एप्पल ने फ़ोन में इंस्टॉल करके दी थी। इवेंचुअली अगले साल ऐप स्टोर का जन्म हुआ एंड वी टुडे ऑल नो दैट हाउ पॉपुलर दिस ऐप स्टोर इज। और आपको कोई भी लेटेस्ट ऐप अगर यूज़ करनी होती है, एप्पल्स गॉट ऑल द एप्स इन देयर ऐप स्टोर। इनफैक्ट काफ़ी ऐप्स तो ऐसी हैं जो सबसे पहले ऐप स्टोर पे आती हैं। फॉर एग्जाम्पल इंस्टाग्राम केम ऑन टू द ऐप स्टोर फर्स्ट बिफोर इट केम टू एंड्रॉयड। लेकिन सोच के देखो कि 2007 में जो पहला आईफोन आया था, there was no app store. Guys, do you know this? If yes, then amazing. If no, then please let me know by dropping in all your
Hello and welcome to India Sense, NDTV's premier international show. I'm Gauri Dwivedi. India Sense is your one-stop guide and destination for news and views from the world of global politics, economics, and the buzzing world of technology, with India at the very center of it. Let's get started. Let's get the headlines this Friday evening. Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is in New Delhi. Modi 3.0 to focus on building stronger footprint in its immediate neighborhood. Closer ties with Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives. Top priority to counter China's debt trap diplomacy model. Flurry of diplomatic activity between India and the US. Days after Prime Minister Modi met US President Joe Biden in Italy, national security advisors of the two nations met in New Delhi. Even as top US lawmakers were in Dharamshala to meet the Dalai Lama and pledge support for autonomous Tibet. Top global political commentator Fareed Zakaria speaks to NDTV, says US-India ties are much bigger than minor irritants like the Panun issue. On the upcoming US presidential polls, Zakaria says the political debate is essentially immigration versus abortion. Semiconductor chip maker NVIDIA topples Microsoft to become the world's most valuable company. NVIDIA now has a market cap of $3.3 trillion. $2 trillion of this has come in 2024 itself, indicating the massive bull run in the global chip space. Russian President Vladimir Putin visits North Korea, his first visit to the pariah state in 24 years. The two countries signed mutual defense treaty. The pact may complicate the security apparatus in Asia. With no amount of subs bringing back home buyers and prices dropping to 10-year record lows, the China real estate sector story may be headed for a big crash. How big is the problem? Find out on India Ascends. This week on India Ascends, we start with New Delhi's outreach in its neighborhood. Now, Asia is at the very center of one of the biggest geopolitical rivalries taking place in the world between India and China. Now, due to its larger economy, China has been able to further its political and military goals via the Belt and Road Initiative. And to counter this, India now needs to focus more on its neighborhood, and it's already doing so after inviting the very anti-India Maldivian president to New Delhi for his swearing-in ceremony. Prime Minister Modi is now focused on strengthening ties with Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, countries that sit on strategic points in the Indo-Pacific and have been recipients of very large amount of Chinese loans. China has been working on a string of pearls strategy, building strategic partnerships with New Delhi's neighbors. To counter China, India needs to focus on two big things: port connectivity and greater infra investments in its neighborhood. Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is in India. She and her party share a very good rapport with India. And in January this year, when Sheikh Hasina faced American criticism on her democratic credentials, it was New Delhi that backed her and continues to be one of her closest allies. India has extended LC business to Bangladesh worth $8 billion, but in comparison, Chinese investments last year was $7 billion. And via the debt trap BRI model, Chinese companies won construction contracts worth $22 billion. India's alternative to BRI is transparent and equitable contracts and grants. And nations know it. In fact, no one knows this better than Sri Lanka, which came under heavy debt courtesy massive Chinese loans. As Sri Lanka goes to polls in a few months, External Affairs Minister Jayashankar's visit to Colombo is testimony to New Delhi upping the ante. But it's not just about India versus China. Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Mauritius, Seychelles, and other smaller nations in the Indo-Pacific need to balance their development needs with geopolitical stability and choices that they will have to make. And it's up to regional leaders and heavyweights like India to limit the Chinese influence in the region by upping the ante and building better ties with their neighbors. The other big story on India Ascends. Where are US-India ties headed under Modi 3.0? This week saw a great deal of activity between New Delhi and Washington, even as some irritants in the relationship have surfaced. NSA Jake Sullivan and Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell held talks with External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar days after Prime Minister Modi and US President Joe Biden met at the G7 summit in Italy, even as a US congressional delegation, which included former US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, arrived in India. It is no coincidence that one of the first visits by high-ranking foreign officials in Modi 3.0 was from one of New Delhi's closest partners, that is Washington. Yet, when Modi and Biden shook hands, Nikhil Gupta, an Indian national accused by the United States of allegedly being involved in a murder-for-hire plot against Sikh separatist Pannu, was extradited from Czech Republic to the US on 14th of June. It's unclear if any of this came up during Sullivan's meetings in India, which figured on much more than just this irritant.
I don't have more to add on the conversations that Jake's having. He's still over there having these conversations, but the main focus of his visit, as I said, was to look for ways to deepen the U.S.-India bilateral relationship, particularly when it comes to emerging technology.
Will you bring this up?
I don't have anything more to add on the conversations.
Now, the past decade has seen India and US sign numerous agreements, undertake joint military exercises, and restart Quad over China's aggressions in the Indo-Pacific. And it seems that the case involving Sikh separatist Pannu was being stoked to create divisions between what is one of the strongest and most robust strategic partnerships of the 21st century. In fact, US made an important geopolitical statement on Indian soil this week. US lawmakers, including former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, met the Dalai Lama in Dharamshala this week. India has given asylum to the 14th Dalai Lama and hosts the Tibetan parliament in exile on its soil. So even though it may not have started this power play on Tibet, India is now a key player on this.
His Holiness the Dalai Lama, with his message of knowledge and tradition and compassion and purity of soul and love, he will live a long time and his legacy will live forever. But to you, President of China, you'll be gone and nobody will give you credit for anything.
Now, it's not the first time that US lawmakers have made a trip to Dharamshala. India has allowed many such trips in the past, but it's different this time around. For one, there is the Resolve Tibet Act that awaits President Biden's nod, post which the global pressure on China to start talks with Tibet is likely to intensify. The second important bit is that President Biden had said in 2020 that he would meet the Dalai Lama. With him going to US for his medical treatment, it's almost likelihood, possibly a certainty, that there could be a meeting on the cards. And thirdly, India shares a border with Tibet, not China. And if Tibet had remained an independent country, it would have been the 10th largest such country in the world, which is why focus could come back on this issue. In fact, it's not just the geopolitical alignment between India and US. It is also the fact that now there is a complete meeting of minds on two other very important and strategic issues in this relationship: trade and technology. The second meeting of the US-India initiative on critical and emerging technology saw the two countries ramping up collaboration in AI, space, semiconductors, clean energy, and working to restrict access to countries such as China and Russia that have civil military usage of technology. The prospect of Taiwan's possible invasion and global impact it would have on semiconductor supply is making India and US launch a new strategic semiconductor partnership for precision-guided ammunition and other national security-focused electronics platforms. Bilateral trade figures have also seen a huge surge in the last 5 years. Between 2018 to 2022, on your screens are the numbers that tell the story. Exports have increased to $118.5 billion from about $83 odd billion. Imports have also grown from $58 billion to $73 billion. India actually has a trade surplus, one of the few countries with which India enjoys a trade surplus with the US. There you can see on your screens. And some of this will only look up once a free trade pact is signed between India and US. Now, strategically, India remains a crucial partner for the US, vital to help counter China's aggression in the region. Short-term snags will not impact the larger trajectory of this relationship, which is likely to only move forward. Okay, let's get the top voice on the show. Fareed Zakaria, global opinion commentator, speaking exclusively to NDTV. Mr. Zakaria, thanks so much for speaking to me. As we speak, there is enough and more that's happening as far as the US-India partnership is concerned. It's evolved. It's seen a huge amount of change and transformation since the Clinton and Bush era. How do you view it now in the backdrop of Modi 3.0 coming to power?
And if you look at the Trump administration, one area where there was enormous continuity was on India. And in fact, Trump liked the fact that Modi was as popular as he was, particularly with Indians abroad. And so really the United States has made a strategic decision over the last 20 years to move closer to India and to try to make India part of the new Asian security system, naturally, largely in response to the rise of China. In that context, Modi coming back for a third term is a very beneficial thing for the US-India relations because it's continuity. Modi is a known character. But I don't want people to get the wrong impression. Had there been a change in government, I don't think there would have been any change in US-India relations because they have really been developing steadily more close for the last 25 years.
Absolutely. And while there is broad understanding and alignment on key strategic issues between US and India, I have to ask you this. How important or how significant do you think irritants like Pannun issue are? Or do you think they even matter in the larger scheme of the strategic partnership between India and US?
Look, there are always going to be some issues that cause disagreement, friction, tension between two countries. I mean, the United States has issues like that with European countries all the time, and they are the closest allies of the United States. I think that people were puzzled in Washington that the Indian government would be trying to do something of the nature of what it did, and frankly, it was a departure. It's not something the Indian government has done in the past very often. And so I think that they were more puzzled, taken aback, trying to figure out how to handle it. But I don't think it just seriously derails the relationship. It's an irritant. It has to be dealt with. And as far as I can tell, they have dealt with it, in a way that does not damage the overall relationship.
Before I come to your mercurial Republican candidate, I must point out, Mr. Zakaria, that these are still allegations. New Delhi has denied all of them. And as you mentioned, these are just irritants in a much larger relationship. Now, speaking of the US elections, Republican candidate Donald Trump is viewed as mercurial. He's, in fact, viewed as being averse to globalization. How much impact do you think this will have on mechanisms like Quad, which have been revived against a very aggressive China? Do you think they could come under threat under a possible Trump presidency?
The Obama and Biden administration have pushed for a kind of new architecture of security in Asia, which involves other countries, which partners with them, which allies with them. And that's a kind of slow, painstaking process where you have to listen to other countries, understand what their concerns are, try to, find a way to accommodate those concerns, as the Biden team has done with India, but also with Australia, with South Korea, with Japan. Trump, as I say, is more impulsive. He's more transactional. So it could be, there's upside there, which is he might decide, to do some big favor to India because he feels like this is worth doing for this one particular deal. On the other hand, he may ignore it. That you won't get that steady, predictable building of an alliance structure, of a security structure. What you'll get is more whimsical, more, one-shot deals, some of which might be good, some of which might be bad. And, by the way, this characterization that I'm giving you of the difference between the two is what worries large parts of the world, the unpredictability of it.
The unpredictability of a Trump administration. Speaking of the elections, Mr. Zakaria, how important is immigration? Do you think it's pretty much the fulcrum of what this election is all about? I'm asking you this also because Indians form a very large and sizable chunk of immigrants, and Republicans have been very vocal about it. President Biden is now coming out with executive orders on it. So how important is this issue in 2024 polls?
Immigration is huge in the context of the election. I think this is an election being fought largely on cultural issues. Immigration for the Republicans, abortion for the Democrats. The economy is doing fantastically. I mean, the U.S. economy, by any objective measure, is having one of its strongest periods in its history. Unemployment is at a 50-year low. Inflation is 3%. If you look at almost any measure, the United States is just towering over the rest of the world. If you look at America's technology companies, they are absolutely dominant in their field. American banks are dominant. European banks are nowhere to be seen in comparison. America is the largest energy producer in the world. America now produces more oil than Saudi Arabia and more and more natural gas than Qatar. So you put all that together, it's a very powerful place. But President Biden is getting very little credit for it because the election is being fought largely on these cultural issues, immigration, abortion. And immigration is particularly important these days.
I think President Biden is getting credit for the turnaround that the U.S. economy has seen. But as we end this conversation, Mr. Zakaria, I want to ask you this, that what do you think are the big focus areas for U.S.-India ties going forward? Everything from 6G to space is being talked about. But in your perspective, what could be that defining aspect of this relationship?
Well, I think what India should strive for is to kind of create a technological corridor with America, because India's great opportunity now is to move up the technology value chain in the way that China did. People don't realize, well, India has a tech sector. It's largely back office processing. It's fairly simple stuff that involves using lower priced labor. What India needs to do is to move up the value chain and start producing really high quality products in technology and software and services and things like that, even inventing new technologies. Chinese companies in the technology space are much, much more advanced than India is. India could ally with the US, find ways to develop those technologies, get technology transfer, training, all that kind of thing. But India has to really make a decision that it's going to cast its future in that way. It needs to. India is still one of the, I think it is probably the most protectionist large economy in the world, which makes it very difficult for it to plug into the world of globalization, technology. It's difficult to be at the cutting edge when you are that protected. It still has so many features that remain part of the license quota raj, particularly with regard to trade. And the BJP has traditionally not been very good about these issues because it has always been suspicious of the foreign world and foreign trade. So if it could really open itself up, ally with the US, I think you could see an enormous advance that would take place in India economically, technologically, scientifically. And that, I think, would be the thing that would really help India catapult itself. India has the potential to really be one of the great technology powers in the world. And technology is what is driving economics. It's what's driving the alleviation of poverty. It's what's driving the advancement of society. We live in an age of a digital revolution, and India needs to be at the forefront of that revolution. It couldn't get a better partner than the United States. American companies and American universities absolutely dominate this space. But India has to stop being reluctant and being kind of pulled along, kicking and screaming. It has to jump into this world and say, we want to be at the forefront, the way, for example, that Israel did, the way in which countries like Sweden and Britain have done. That's the potential future for India. I hope it takes it. I think America, they'll find a willing partner and a ready partner in America. That would be more important to my mind for the life of average Indians than defense cooperation and things like that, which will happen and should happen. But it won't. That doesn't change the life of the average Indian. That doesn't move Indians out of poverty. That doesn't move India up the value chain. Embracing a technology corridor with the US, that would be a game changer.
Okay. All right. With that, thanks much, Mr. Zakaria, for speaking to NDTV. There is, of course, a lot that can be done as far as the India-US ties are concerned. Tech could be that one big X factor. And on that note, we slip into a very short break. We come back with lots more on the other side. Stay with us.
लोन मिलेगा या नहीं ये आपके क्रेडिट स्कोर पे डिपेंड करता है। तो आज ही पैसाबाजार.com पर जाइए और अपना क्रेडिट स्कोर चेक कीजिए फ्री में, क्योंकि लोन की जरूरत कभी भी किसी को भी पड़ सकती है।
बस एक्टिंग करा लो इनसे।
पैसाबाजार.com, क्रेडिट स्कोर चेक, आदत अच्छी है।
Some people say the metaverse will only be virtual. One day this lecture hall will be made of code, and driverless cars would be trapped in intersections. But even in this maze of the future, you can't wish away health. It's time to become more resilient. 10 years of Banega Swasth India, we have grown and achieved so many milestones. And now I have a plan to beat the urgency, to stop breathing with difficulty, to relieve getting choked with inactivity. Energize our government, our environment, our society, and ourselves. Everyone, everywhere, every day.
Welcome back to India Sense. We now focus on a story that impacts every one of us in this segment. Now, climate change is no more a thing that the next generation needs to worry about. It's now an emergency that the present generation needs to address. By the next one, it will probably be a bit too late. There are now wild weather swings that are taking place around the world, not just in developing countries, but even the abode of rich and mighty, the French Riviera. Wild weather swings now wreak havoc to the global economy, from testing power grids to skyrocketing food prices. And by 2049, these damages could cost the global economy a whopping $38 trillion every year, more than 6 times of what is needed to cut emissions as per the Paris Pact, which is $6 trillion. But here's the alarming part. The world is not even spending this much. Spending on clean tech stood at $1.8 trillion in 2023. As we live in these times of wild weather, watch this report to take a look at the real extent of the climate catastrophe that stares all of us.
From a record-breaking heat wave in India to extreme weather in Brazil, USA and Mexico, climate catastrophe is here. The month of May was the 12th consecutive month of record-breaking temperatures, with average temperatures at 1.52 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial age. This is likely to make 2024 the hottest year on record. But that's not all. For England, this has been the wettest year since 1836. For Dubai, it witnessed its worst floods ever. And for Canada, it saw wildfires that burnt continuously for a year. In India, the severe heat wave this summer may have killed at least 100 people and made tens of thousands very sick. The heat wave has been deadly for the US. As per the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, heat contributed to the deaths of more than 2,300 Americans in 2023. The death toll has more than doubled in the past 5 years. In March, the Saharan dust storms turned skies yellow and orange and degraded air quality in European countries, from Greece to Italy to France. If there's one thing that the climate emergency shows, it is that it will impact all countries, including the most advanced.
Now, reports show that a 1% increase in global temperature leads to a 12% decline in world GDP. And as expected, this will hit poorer countries much more than their rich counterparts. In Middle East and Africa, the projected income loss by 2049 will be 22.4%. For South Asia, it will be 22.3%. For Europe and America, the loss would be half, 11%. But the disruptions that will be coming because of this to housing, food prices, energy, transportation costs will spare no one. In fact, as per ICF, the lifetime cost of climate change for a baby born in US today is $500,000. This may rise further. When will the rich countries that have historically been high polluters rise together? Shifting our focus now to China. Beijing has been struggling to get back to its pre-pandemic levels, and while manufacturing is picking up, its real estate sector, which makes up almost a quarter of the economy, is showing no signs of recovery. The Chinese government seems to have done everything it can, but it doesn't seem to be enough. And just how bad the situation for China's housing is, well, the short answer to that is very bad. New home prices fell at the fastest pace in nearly a decade. The May price drop was the 11th month-on-month fall and the steepest since October 2014. Worse still, the government's measures have all seemed to fail. From reducing rates to easing eligibility criteria to even offers of rolling over loans, nothing seems to be bringing customers back. And it won't, because the prognosis is wrong and the response inadequate. The sector is struggling because home buyers are unsure of their economic future. They're uncertain about the prospects of the big real estate companies and the larger demographic trend, which reflects a rapidly aging society which isn't going to go about buying houses. Now, this can't be solved by asking local governments to buy unsold inventory and turning them into affordable housing. For starters, there are no takers for that many housing units. And secondly, the amount promised by Xi Jinping to local governments is not even 10% of the value of unsold houses that need to be brought. And above all, since China's economic model focused on local governments taking large debts to build those giant infrastructure projects for the last 15 years, their balance sheets are now maxed out. They cannot take more loans, even if it means at the cost of the collapse of the housing sector. If anything, China can learn from the Indian real estate market. The sector here is 7% of the GDP, not 25% as it is in China. It has checks and balances on developers through regulatory bodies. And even if developers have stretched balance sheets, the consumer demand is real. There are no ghost towns in India. China's real estate sector is yet to bottom out, and it remains to be seen whether it will take the economy with it. All right, on that note, it's a complete wrap on this edition of India Sense. Thanks so much for watching.
लोन मिलेगा या नहीं, ये आपके क्रेडिट स्कोर पे डिपेंड करता है। आज ही जाइए पैसाबाजार.com पर और अपना क्रेडिट स्कोर चेक कीजिए फ्री में, क्योंकि लोन की जरूरत किसी को भी कभी भी पड़ सकती है।
चल एक्टिंग थोड़ा भेल बनो।
पैसाबाजार.com
Stay informed and entertained with the new and updated NDTV News app. You can watch all our channels live, listen to podcasts, read breaking and exclusive news from around the world and more. Download the NDTV app today and get access to the best journalism and storytelling on your smartphone or tablet. The NDTV app. News that matters to you.
Okay, so guys, there we have it. Now this is the best and my personal favorite section. आपको पता है, it's called Ask TG, and यहाँ पे my responsibility is to answer all your questions जो भी आपने पूछे होते हैं अलग-अलग अपने gadgets के बारे में. I'll give you all the answers.
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Hello, Moto.
Hello and welcome to the Southern View. I'm Veera Raghav. Our top focus on that enormous hooch tragedy in Tamil Nadu. Sharp observations from the High Court of Madras. Remember, the tragedy has claimed over 50 lives. We'll also have a special panel up ahead on the NEET controversy. But first, the headlines that we are tracking this hour. From the top national story, no relief for Arvind Kejriwal as the court will now decide on his bail plea only on the 25th of June. The Delhi High Court, remember, had stayed his bail plea after the ED's appeal. Parliamentary Affairs Minister says no rules flouted as the Congress makes a sharp accusation at the NDA for breaking convention and not appointing the senior-most 8-time MP Kodikunil Suresh as pro-term Speaker. Nationwide protests by the opposition as it targets the government over the NEET exam mess and braces for a confrontation in Parliament. The National Testing Agency issues admit cards for the retest of the over 1,500 aspirants who were given grace marks. A mob goes on a rampage and attacks a police station in Maharashtra's Jalgaon after a 6-year-old girl was raped and murdered. First up to big news breaking this hour. Strong observations from the Madras High Court, which was hearing a case filed by an AIADMK functionary on that enormous illicit liquor tragedy in the state. The court has now asked the state government to file an action taken report, raising sharp questions. Remember, the tragedy in the state's Kallakurichi district has claimed 51 lives, including that of women and a trans person. Families at the Karunapuram village are shattered. In some cases, children have lost both their parents who were daily wagers, and people say that the illicit liquor packets were sold openly from 4 a.m. with the connivance of the local police. But does the connivance stop at the local police level or does it go deeper? So serious questions there. Remember, the issue played into a major confrontation in the state assembly. The state government has ordered for a commission of inquiry by a retired judge and has suspended several officials, transferred some high-ranking officers and offered compensation. The opposition in the state, the principal opposition party, the AIADMK, wore black shirts and protested in the state assembly demanding the resignation of Chief Minister M.K. Stalin. The protest spearheaded by leader of opposition Edappadi Palanichami, the former Chief Minister as well. NDTV's Sam Daniel is at ground zero and joins us live. Sam, the big news at the moment are those sharp observations from the Madras High Court.
That's right, Veeraraghav. Sharp observations by the court, particularly putting things in context, referring to the 2023 similar hooch tragedy in Viluppuram and Chengalpattu districts that had taken away the lives of 22 people. And the court asked whether the government had learnt any lessons and had taken any preventive steps. And how did the government let this particular tragedy happen which at the moment has taken away the lives of 51 people. And the public interest litigation was originally moved by former AIADMK MLA in Badurai asking for a CBI probe. And it's in that context when the government argued that all steps were taken, the court made such sharp observations, putting specific questions. Last year, 22 were killed in a huge tragedy. What action did you take on them and what did you learn from them? And we expect the Tamil Nadu government to give statistics in terms of number of arrests made, how many have been put behind bars under the Gundas Act, and what kind of steps have been taken to check the movement of methanol, which has now turned into a killer yet again. And on the floor of the House, Chief Minister M.K. Stalin had given numbers in terms of how many have been arrested. What's the status of those cases now, particularly those in Chengalpattu and Viluppuram districts? And now we can expect the state government to give more statistics and information in terms of what action was taken, what lessons learnt. Based on that, the court may take a call in terms of deciding or directing, asking for a CBI probe or otherwise. At the moment, the issue is the case is being investigated by the CBCID, which was the case last time as well. And on the floor of the House, Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin facing criticism and demands for his resignation by the AIADMK, gave a list of information in terms of the background, in terms of action taken against officials, in terms of lapses, including the suspension of the SP, transfer of collectors and the ADGP in charge of enforcement, and how a one-man inquiry commission is also now investigating. And he assured that based on the reports given by these committees and the commission, and also the one by the DGP and the Home Secretary, he would make sure tough action is taken, and those who are found to be wanting and found responsible for this would be made to stand before law.
Right. Right, those are the larger political exchange and of course systemic issues that are being addressed, Sam, but you are at ground zero and you've been speaking to several victims, in fact heart-wrenching stories and pictures that you've sent us across with families which have lost their breadwinners, mainly daily wages. We have the AIADMK's Vapugarendi, national spokesperson, as well as the DMK's Salem Dharanitharan joining us on this broadcast. But before we get into the further discussion on this issue, let's play some of the reactions that Sam got from ground zero, from people, families which have been shattered by this illicit liquor tragedy there in Kallakurichi.
I'm very sorry about the loss. இது எப்படி நடந்துச்சு?
அதான் மலன் நல்லா இருந்தார். உடனே என்ன பண்ணார், மயக்கம் வருது, கண்ணு தெரியலப்பா, மஞ்சளாக வருது, ஒன்றும் இதுவும் ஆகல. அப்புறம் போய் ஹாஸ்பிட்டலில் சேர்த்ததுக்கு டாக்டர் சாராயம் குடிச்சு தான் அப்படி ஆயிடுச்சு.
இங்கே தான் குடிச்சாரா?
இங்கே தான், இந்த இடம் தான்.
Right. He says his father, after consuming illicit liquor, suffered problems with his vision, and then when they rushed him to the hospital, doctors confirmed that it's because of illicit liquor.
Well, Sam Daniel still with us from Kallakurichi, as well as Salem Dharanitharan of the DMK and Vapugarendi of the AIADMK. Salem Dharanitharan, while a judge has been ordered to probe this, inquire into this incident, reports have been asked, sharp observations from the High Court, local police officials have been suspended, but does it end there? Does this show a systemic failure to curb illicit liquor in the state? Because this seems to have been a well-oiled racket, as Sam has been reporting.
Good evening. I would like to apologize for the incident. It is very unfortunate, and I would like to apologize on behalf of the government for the family. But having said that, you can't say that the government has not taken any steps. We've been very, very strict when it comes to curbing illicit liquor. In fact, 15 lakh liters of illicit alcohol has been found and they're being destroyed over the last year. And in fact, 4 lakh people have been arrested and 14,000 cases have been filed only in Kallakurichi. We are examining what has happened, how this must have happened, and how to make sure this never happens. Not just in the upcoming years, but never happens in the future, never ever. And the Chief Minister also announced a committee under Justice Gopi Das, a single-member committee which is also going to go and ascertain what actually happened. We have proactively reacted to the situation. The sports minister was there and all the senior ministers visited the spot, and the superintendent of police was immediately suspended, and the district magistrate, the collector, was also transferred out. I urge the opposition to not do politics with this, because illicit death effect is
You
not
made
just
that point. I want to
Tamil
just
Nadu
take
problem.
this
No, one
across
more
to
point.
Va
One more
Pugarendi
point.
as well.
One more point.
Mr.
One more
Pugarendi
point.
demanding the chief... Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Salem. Go ahead.
One more
Very
point. I
quickly.
think this is a problem that's prevalent across India, even from Gujarat to Uttar Pradesh. In fact, Uttar Pradesh last year 450 people died, and Madhya Pradesh, even Chhattisgarh, about hundreds of people have died last year. I think we
All
have to
right, you're
find
saying it's a
strategy to
national
end this
problem.
completely. No, I'm not saying
You're
it's a
saying
national
it's a
problem,
national
but I'm
problem.
what?
Va
No,
Pugarendi, your
I'm not
response.
saying
You
that.
heard what Salem Dharanitharan says.
No.
Go ahead.
Sir, good evening to NDTV.
No, you've got to finish your point now, Salem Dharanitharan. We can't... Yeah, go ahead, Salem. Va Pugarendi.
Sir, good evening. Good evening. I had been Kalakuruchi. I met there so many patients in the hospital. That is a worst tragedy, or you believe or not. This is the high time. The legislative should amend the existing laws to give and enforce shoot on sight. No other way, because they are selling openly. They are selling the arak. This type of the arak available in the various places of the Tamil Nadu. So the particularly this spot nearing 100 deaths. So that's why I demands seeking the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, you bring the law suit and sight, then only it is possible to stop. Or otherwise you cannot able to stop. This is the, because I went to so many houses. I have seen the bodies. That is remarkable, or you believe or not. That is like tsunami like. It is going on. So that is the only the, so if you want to, this government wants sorted out, only the shoot and sight order should bring, otherwise no use.
You are demanding far sterner action. Sam Daniel, what's the sense you're picking up at the ground? You've been speaking to people out there.
At this village, they say it's common knowledge, Viruraghav, that at one particular place, one of them who has been arrested now at his backyard, illicit liquor was sold for a long time. It began as early as 4 o'clock in the morning. He used to even flaunt his connections with the police, saying, come what may, nothing will happen to me, go and report. That's the kind of confidence, and that's the kind of collusion, they say, the bootleggers and the police had. And this place is very close to a police station, very close to the court here. It's in the heart of the district here, and there's no way this can be called as something happening in a stealthy way. So it should be, they say, either clear case of connivance or a total collapse of the enforcement agency. I have a question to Dharanitharan. Dharanitharan, the opposition leader, EPS, is questioning the Chief Minister's, what he calls competence and his control over the police force. How would you respond to that?
Dharanitharan, respond.
No, EPS is the last person who can comment on it. You know how the 4 year of Tamil Nadu was. It was the worst rule in the history of Tamil Nadu. And when in fact the Tuticorin shooting happened, EPS and Chief Minister said, I don't know if shooting happened. Can you believe a sitting Chief Minister comes and tells that I don't know if the shooting happened? That's what EPS stood for. So I think he's the last person to comment on anyone's competence. And his rule was when Tamil Nadu failed in all the fronts. You name it, Tamil Nadu went back by a decade. So I think he has no moral authority to comment on anything. As I said, Chief Minister took responsibility for it, our Chief Minister.
Okay, you're saying no.
No, let me complete. So,
okay, I just want to give one word to the AIDMK.
Sir, that is openly they are selling. Not now.
You need to complete fast.
No, only, but this is going on fast 1 or 2 years.
Go ahead, Mr.
Not now. So many months going on these things. So that immediately CM have to take serious action, serious steps. They found anything that tell them enforcement to do on the spot action. No other way. Shoot and sight.
Okay, Salem Dharanitharan, it's not just about Kallakurichi, it requires statewide action. Does it require statewide action? Will there be statewide action?
As the Chief Minister said, and reiterated time and again, we will make sure such incidences do not happen again in Tamil Nadu, not just in the next coming years, but forever.
Okay.
We have also launched a statewide massive search for all the people involved in such activities, if at all there is any. We'll make sure that this never happens again. This has been promised by a leader also.
Okay. Thanks very much, Salem Dharnitar. And Sam, of course, has been reporting from ground zero. We'll play out some of Sam's reports as well. Thanks, Mr. Pugarendi. Beneath all that political exchange that's playing out, this is, remember, an enormous human tragedy. In Telangana now, we're shifting focus. More worries for the Bharatiya Rashtriya Samiti as its senior leadership continues to desert the party. While several MPs and MLAs moved out of the regional force after its trouncing in the assembly polls, the trend continues with senior BRS leader and former Speaker Pocharam Srinivas joining the Congress today. The fear is that many more could follow. Uma Sudhir with the details.
Pocharam Srinivas Reddy has been one of the senior-most leaders, not just with the BRS, but in Telangana itself. He has been a former speaker. He was agriculture minister in the first term. He has been minister in the TDP, and earlier he was in the Congress, and now it's Ghar Wapsi. So his shifting to the Congress is once again fueled speculation that Operation Akash may be intensified. That's a term that's been used for saying that Congress will proactively encourage or allow the movement of BRS MLAs into the ruling party. Danam Nagendar, one of the MLAs who had in fact become the Congress candidate for the Secunderabad Lok Sabha, has said that as many as 20 BRS MLAs may soon be shifting to the Congress. Already 4 MLAs have shifted. That includes Danam Nagendar, Pocharam Srinivas, Tellam Venkatrao, as well as Kadiyam Srihari. And we understand that there are also talks going on with the MLCs. The Legislative Council, strength of 40 and 25 of them are from the BRS, and therefore talks are going on to ensure some kind of a shift or change of loyalty so that the Congress does not face any challenges when bills come up in the Legislative Council. Of course, competition could also come up for the MLAs from the BJP.
From troubles for the BRS now to the raging nationwide protests and controversy over the NEET process. As the opposition braces for a showdown with the government in Parliament, there's been a spate of sharp political accusations from opposition leaders questioning the very foundations of a central testing system. While the Education Minister and the central government has promised stern action and assured that students' interests will be safeguarded, the controversy has led to both uncertainty for students and renewed vigor from those opposing NEET. States like Tamil Nadu, remember, have been categorically against the national testing system and have held that it puts those from weaker socio-economic sections and rural parts at an inherent disadvantage. Karnataka too has now questioned the centralized process. It's been, remember though, the centralized process has been upheld by the apex court. A special panel of experts up ahead to understand the long-term implications of this controversy. But first, the political reactions that came in today.
मेरा नाम घसीटना चाहते हैं, मेरे पीए का घसीटना चाहते हैं, इससे कोई फ़ायदा होने वाला नहीं है। ये लोग जो किंगपिंग जो है पेपर लीक के, उन लोगों से इशू को डाइवर्ट करना चाहते हैं। जो अमित आनंद है, जो आपका नीतीश कुमार है, ये कौन लोग हैं? इनको क्यों बचाना चाहते हैं ये लोग? क्यों ये लोग जो है डाइवर्ट कर रहे हैं इशू को?
हम लोगों ने, सब लोगों ने मिल करके निर्णय लिए हैं कि बिहार के अंदर ये माफिया राज को खत्म करना, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर को बहाल करना। आज इसके माध्यम से जो हमारे साइट पर, खनन के साइट पर हत्याएं होती है, गोलियों की बारिश होती है, अवैध खनन के लिए गैंगवार लड़ाई होती है, वो सब भी कैद होंगे और दिखाई पड़ेंगे।
And so what does this controversy mean to the system and the process itself? Joining us this evening, educationist Sudha Acharya, Dr. Navneet of the Tamil Nadu Resident Doctors Association, who is strongly opposed to NEET, Anil Nagar, founder, CEO of Adda 24/7. My first question to you, Mr. Nagar, the argument has been, and this is not after this controversy, it's been a systemic argument that's been made for several years now against NEET, that it defeats the purpose of socio-economically weaker sections, helps those in urban centers, and does not benefit those people. Does this controversy raise serious questions and trigger potential rethink of a national testing system itself?
In my personal experience, I will say this is not true. So first of all, I personally come from a village in UP, and I'm here talking on this show just because of these kind of exams. I gave IIT exam and somehow cleared it. And I'm that typical person about whom you were talking, somebody staying in a village and rural area. So in my personal experience, I don't believe that this is not helping poor people. Secondly, even as an educator, we teach a lot of students who come from rural area and from different parts of the country. There are a lot of advantages and a lot of problems which are being solved by keeping it centralized. But broadly giving opportunity to everyone, wherever you stay in the country and whatever the seats are in the whole country, I think it's actually providing equal opportunity to every Indian. So personally, my opinion is that it's not so bad. There may be some demerits, but overall, I feel that this is serving some purpose.
Okay, you're saying it's serving some purpose. Sudha Acharya, before I go to Dr. Navneet, Sudha Acharya, from the larger point of view, there have been questions raised about NEET. Now there is questions raised about the testing system and the process. Should this be taken as, something that should lead to an entire rethink of the system and the process, or is it only about the management of it and ensuring that this system works better?
I think it is the management system. I put a question on NTA blatantly. I mean, how the exam is managed, organized, and I'm thick and thin involved with the process as a principal of CBSE school. Last year, I was city coordinator for one district of Delhi in conducting this exam. Even from my school, a lot of special need children, they appeared. And yesterday in your show, I was hearing the girl with a special need, what kind of centers he got and what kind of harrowing experience he has gone through. Last year also, same thing happened with one of my school boy who had multiple disability, and he had to go through a lot of hardship, and even media and channels, they come through and they helped him. So how the examination is managed, I put a question on that.
Okay, you're saying you will put a question mark on how the examination is managed. Dr. Navneet, you are putting a question mark, in a sense, Tamil Nadu is putting a question mark on the entire system itself. As the political exchange plays out, the question really is of whether there should be a centralized testing system or should that be decentralized.
Yeah, children will get really some sense of
Dr.
trust
Navneet,
and transparency.
I'm putting that question to Dr. Navneet, Sudha Acharya.
I think this should not be centralized, first of all. See, we have, India is a huge country with a very huge population. When the population of Tamil Nadu is alone greater than the population of a country like England, say England, we have like Tamil Nadu right now, we have like 8 crore population, and UK is right now it has a 6.5 crore population. We certain states in India have a population that are higher than the a large number of a collective number of European nations. When those nations have like separate educational platforms or separate education systems for each of them, I don't think a centralized approach for this MBBS is the right thing to do here, because I don't think we can effectively manage or we can effectively conduct an exam for such a huge population, and especially in a country like India, which is practically a subcontinent, and where the states hold a higher population than some European nations itself.
Okay, so you're making that point, you know, in a sense, in many ways, the point that you're making is what is reflected in Tamil Nadu's argument. Mr. Nagar, when it comes down to it, and you obviously deal with students from a wide socio-economic strata, you know, is there different realities to different places and states? For instance, states like Tamil Nadu, which have had a consistent push in education for many years, vis-a-vis states like a Bihar or UP. How does this process, you know, sort of while we create a national pool, how do you also keep in mind state-specific interests?
As I understand the system, though the exam is centralized, I think a lot of things are done by these states also in terms of operational things and operational mechanics of organizing the exam in a state. Sometime back, I generally used to wonder because sometime back the exams were generally in Hindi or English. So I used to wonder whether this should be in local languages also. Now most of the exams are in local languages also. So I think on the exam conduct point of view, exam is in local languages. Most of the local exam organization process is handled by state or let's say state within the state various actors, whoever they are. So a lot of control in terms of organizing the exam is already with the states, as I understand the system. So I believe those things are already taken care.
Okay.
But from a student's point of view, as I said earlier, I believe this opens a lot more opportunities, because now let's say I as a student, I'm sitting in UP, and if I am good, I can aspire for a number of seats all across India. So that opens more opportunities for me. In that sense, I feel this is a slightly better system.
Okay, you're making that point that this is slightly, it opens up opportunities. Dr. Navneet, you know, in a sense, should states like Tamil Nadu also consider the fact from a national picture and see this potentially from that point of view, you know, than a state-specific point of view? Very quickly.
See, we earlier had AIPMT, which had a nationwide focus, right? We already had that system. 15% of the seats were contributed for a national for the national contribution. I don't think we were limited to, you know, only intrastate kind of seat arrangements before the NEET. The main problem with NEET is the only you know, the urban focused, the people who are able to spend 1 or 2 years for their preparation stage are able to enter nowadays. For example, in Tamil Nadu, we have 7.5% of seats reserved for students coming from a government school background. If not for that, we will have only 0% going from the purely from a government school system. If we don't have that 7.5 reservation, we will not at all have any students going from the government background, because daily sons of daily wages laborers won't be able to afford such a huge cost of for the NEET preparation. Right before this interview, I inquired a local body who is coaching for NEET, and they are charging up to 2 lakhs per year for coaching. And many of those students who are right now appearing for NEET are twice or thrice repeaters, which means that they have they are able to not go to, you know, college for 3 years, at the same time able to pay 6 lakh money, upwards of 6 lakhs for this particular coaching systems. Yes.
Right, Dr. Naveen, I'm afraid we are completely out of time, but it's you know, there are arguments that have been heard and played out over the last many years around this controversy. Obviously, the political exchange over it and the latest controversy will play out in the coming days. That's all we have time for on the Southern View, but we'd like to leave you with possibly the defining image from the world of politics today in the world of Andhra Pradesh. The return of Chandrababu Naidu was literally complete today. Naidu, who vowed not to enter the state assembly till he was chief minister, entered the House more than 2.5 years after he stormed out of it, protesting a barrage of personal attacks against him by the then ruling YSRCP. Nadu is perhaps the ultimate reminder never to write off a politician or a political party in Indian politics. That's all we have time for on this one.
Hello, Moto.
Motorola, India's best 5G smartphone brand.
लोन मिलेगा या नहीं ये आपके क्रेडिट स्कोर पे डिपेंड करता है। तो आज ही अपना क्रेडिट स्कोर चेक करें फ्री में पैसाबाजार.com पर। लोन की जरूरत कभी भी किसी को भी पड़ सकती है।
ठीक से एक्टिंग नहीं।
पैसाबाजार.com।
Stay informed and entertained with the new and updated NDTV News app. You can watch all our channels live, listen to podcasts, read breaking and exclusive news from around the world and more. Download the NDTV app today and get access to the best journalism and storytelling on your smartphone or tablet. The NDTV app. News that matters to you.
Get ready for the ride of your life. NDTV brings you the NDTV Auto Show with me, Mugdha Mishra. From the fastest supercars to the sleekest new energy vehicles to your trusted daily ride, we cover it all. Every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and Sunday at 8:30 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7. Your next great escape starts here.
NDTV proudly upholds its legacy of trust and credibility. According to the prestigious Reuters Institute's Digital News Report 2024, NDTV is the topmost news platform in the country. #1 in both online and offline reach in India. Beating all its competition, NDTV stands for trust.
Some people say the metaverse will only be virtual. One day this lecture hall will be made of code.
G20 Sherpa, former CEO of Niti Aayog, an administrator par excellence, a thought leader, a policy maker, but most importantly a doer, someone who rolls up his sleeves and gets things done. Welcome everyone. I'm in conversation with Mr. Amitabh Kant. Mr. Kant, thank you so much for speaking. The most sizzling question on everybody's mind, how are we going to make our cities climate resilient, considering that we are basically breaking all previous temperature highs?
So you have to do several things. I think first and foremost, you have to improve air quality. It can't be that 42 of our cities are amongst the most polluted in the top 50 of the world. And therefore we need to take it up as a mass movement. And if you want to improve air quality, you need to do several things. I think first of all, you have to improve the vast amount of biomass and convert it into energy. That's the first and foremost.
So waste.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is again a big problem.
Yeah, so household waste. And that means that you need to segregate it at household level, use it like Indore is doing to convert it into energy. Secondly, you have to undertake a massive cleaning program of the cities. I'm not talking about just Delhi, I'm talking about 42 of our urban cities, which figure in the list of 50. I think the reform agenda of urban cities has to be the #1 priority. And #3 is that this will not happen unless and until household segregation at household level doesn't take place. And there is a sense of pride amongst the citizens of these urban areas. And the most critical of it, other than biomass and household segregation, is that you need to really focus on transportation in a very big way and ensure that these cities all go electric by 2030. So my view is that the government has already taken the initiative to procure 10,000 buses. They've allocated about 57,000 crores. That's almost $7 billion US. It's one of the biggest programs of the government. You need to focus on these 42 cities and actually ensure that all buses, all two-wheelers, three-wheelers, everyone goes electric. And the priority should be that in the next 4 to 5 years, two-wheelers, three-wheelers go electric, and lorries and buses all go electric in the next 5 years, and by 2030 even all four-wheelers go electric. There has to be a really big political and administrative will, and there has to be a mass movement around that. This is absolutely critical to my mind if you want to clean up the quality of air of your cities and clean up these cities and have a sense of pride on your urban areas. But when you do this, not only will you improve the living standards of your citizens in a very big way, you will add about a decade more to their lives, but more important than that, I think you will add close to 1.5% to your GDP.
So there is a huge economic accelerator as well, of course, health and productivity. So let me break both these down. One is, you said that you need to, manage your waste segregation. I spoke to Harshika Singh and I've spoken to other Indore commissioners. Indore has been able to do it because they truly made it a city-wide goal and, pride for everyone, and continuously has kept improving on every aspect of it. Campaign awareness has to be 100%, commitment by the urban local bodies has to be 100%. But that's not being able to